Okay, now we're going through the second example. We're still in our arrays project, and we're going to look at different functions with different functionality, and basically going to show you how to add and remove elements of an array. And so basically, we're looking at the same example. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take I'm going to I guess I'm going to comment this method out, and well, let me do this. Let me comment out all of these functions except run simple method. So once again, we have our component, we have our animals and devices array, our cars array, and we have our constructor. And now I'm going to run simple methods. So we went through that example. So run simple methods. So first, what I'm going to do is, first of all, let's see if our application is running. It is running. And let's see if we have a way our application is running this way. Okay, so we are actually logging from run simple methods now. So let's take a look at what that sample code does. Okay, so the first thing it does, it uses the array literal to instantiate an employee's array, and I call it, I have items in there, I'm going to call them elements, John and Mike. And what I do is I first log the array. I log the length of the array. Now, what is the length of the array here? Okay, so the length of the array, the index is 0. For this element, it's 1 for this element, but the array length is 2. Okay, then I'm going to push Peter onto the array. I'm going to log the array and show you that Peter is the last element in the array. I'm then going to look at the length of the array. It should be 3. I'm going to unshift Jill to the array. That should add Jill to the beginning of the array. And now I'm going to look at the employees array. I'll look at the length. It should be 5. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. No, it should be 4 because John and Mike, and you added Peter at the end. You're going to add Jill in the beginning, so the length would be 4. And you're going to remove the first element using shift. And I don't think this is necessary. You're going to remove the first element of the array using shift, and then what you're going to do is you're going to log the employees array again, look at the length again. At that point, I guess it should be 3. And then you're going to remove the last element of the array by doing a pop. Log, we just removed the last element, show what that last element was by logging it, and then we'll log the employees again, and we'll look at the length again. And so I think it's back to 2 now. Okay, so let's take a look at the example. So I run simple methods. I have John and Mike. I log John and Mike, and I look at the length. I enter run simple methods. I have the employees. The length is 2. I push Peter. Now I show Peter's at the end of the array. The length of the employees is now 3. I unshift Jill to the array. Jill winds up getting added to the array. And then I look at the length and it's 4. Then I remove the first element by using shift. Shifts over the elements to the left. And the first element, Jill, gets bumped out, right? And then I look at the length and it should be 3. Then I remove the last element being pop. I show you what the last element is, Peter. And then I log the employees array, and it's now back to John and Mike. Now the employees length is 2, and I've finished my method. So it's just a simple method which shows you how to pop, unshift, push, unshift, adding elements, pop, shift, removing elements at the end of the array, and looking at the length and making sure that things are going the way you expect. Okay, so now let's look at the other function, which I'm going to call removing items. Okay, and let's take a look at that function. Let's go down here. Okay, so now I created an array called devices. I have a constant devices. I use the array literal to instantiate an array. It's got iPad, iPad Pro, iPhone, iMac, and Android in it. I log the devices, and I look at the device length. Okay, so let's take a look at that. I have the devices. I log it, and then I look at the length, and the length is 5. Okay, now I delete index number 2 element 0, 1, 2. I delete the iPhone element. I show you what the devices 2 is at that point. It should be undefined because we deleted it. And then I also do an assertion if devices of 2 is identically equal to undefined, then I assert that the second item is iPhone. So let's see what happens with the log file up to this point. Okay, so the second element, you're deleting the second element, and you look at the devices too, it's undefined. So devices looks like this. It's got this empty element, undefined element in the array. The length is still 5. Now notice let's see what that assertion said, because I was a little confused about that. The assertion says devices of 2 is undefined. And I'm going to say the second item 0, 1, 2. This is actually the third item. So I'm going to say the third item is undefined. And if it's not, after I delete the third item, then there's something wrong. So this would not log anything. It's basically saying I am expecting device of 2 to be undefined. So if it's not, throw an exception and show me that the third item is undefined. Okay, so then I log the devices, and I saw that there was that undefined element in index 2, but my length was still 5. So now I'm going to remove some items using Splice. Now Splice will change the length, right? So I remove the first and second item. So it should be 0, 1, 2. I remove these 2 items out of the array. When I log devices, it should say iPad, iMac, Android. The length should be 3. So let's take a look at that. Remove first. No, this doesn't. Yeah, this doesn't. I think my logging is incorrect. Well, let me just go with the example here. 0, 1, 2. So the logging really should say remove second and third item. Index 0 is the first item. Index 1 is the second item. Index 2 is the third item. Okay, so when I do that, I put the removed items in removed items. I log it. Well, it turns out that that when I have this array and I remove the second and third items using Splice, I'm removing the iPad Pro and the empty item. So really, the removed items is an array. It is iPad Pro and an undefined item. And then the devices is left with the 3 elements, and the length is 3. Now Splice does change the length. Okay, so then what I do is I list the devices, I list the length, and then what I do is I do this Splice example where I remove the first and second indexed item, and I add 3 elements: headset, Amazon Echo, and light bulb. So in this particular situation, whatever is in my devices array at this point, and I believe it was iPad, iMac, and Android, iPad, iMac, and Android. When I spliced the first, the second, and third item, I get rid of the iMac and the Android, right? This is the number 1 index, iMac, number 2 index, Android. So I get rid of those, and then I insert headset, Amazon Echo, and light bulb. So I wind up with these devices here, which the length is 4. Okay, so now I just wanted to show you that you can use Splice to remove in a range inside the array, and you can insert elements as well. That is add elements as well, and then you can make an item undefined by using delete. You could push an element to the end of the array, pop the element off of the array. You could do an unshift by putting something in the beginning of the array, and you could do a shift by removing from the array. So let me see, that was removing items. This appears to be a more more specific Splice example. Let's go through that one. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go through this remove item Splice example, and basically it's showing you a couple of new things. So basically what we're doing is we're defining the devices array. We log it, we show you the device length, we remove the second and third item like we did in the previous. We show you the removed items, we look at the devices and the length, we've been through this example before, and then we do this example. And the only new thing here that I added was this splice 1. So this should take the array, take the first index of the array, which is really the second element, and remove it from there to the end of the array. So here you have devices. And when you did the splice 1, you wind up with just this one item. So splice 1 started with the number 1 index and removed everything after it. And so you're left with this iPad in the array, and the length is 1. So that's all I really wanted to show you for this example. Let's move on to common operations.